For joining us. This is the May 12th meeting of the East Fishkill Town Board. Tonight we meet in workshop session, is where the board gets to meet all together in a public meeting with our professionals to discuss matters of importance to the town of East Fishkill. If you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. A couple of things tonight I would like to make. My first announcement. DOT, New York State DOT and the contractor that's going to be replacing the bridge on Route 82 down by All Angels Road just gave a short presentation, which was filmed and will be run on our Channel 22. And just a little bit about the project. Obviously, we went through this 5 years ago, maybe it was, I think 5 or 6 years ago, and they replaced the bridge, and now we're going to do it again. The bridge, they're saying there's been a change of schedules. The bridge will be closed probably end of May, beginning of June, taken out of service. They hope to have the bridge done and open to traffic again by mid-November. So we hope that they can do that. We'd appreciate that. And they talked a little bit about their official detour, and they gave their official detour, I think is Route 52, Palin Road. And any of us who live in the town of East Fishkill or the surrounding areas know that really, if you get to that bridge, you can go down All Angels, or you can go down Old Hopewell Road. That's a much closer detour. Dutchess County doesn't want that to be the official detour, but as we all know, that's probably the best way to go. Please do not travel through Loma Law. That is a residential neighborhood. We do not appreciate Route 82 traffic in Loma Law, but certainly All Angels and Old Hopewell would suffice. So I just like to make that point. That being said, I had one other thing I want to talk a little bit about, or I'm going to ask the town attorney to talk. At the last town board meeting, we were awarding a stipend to one of our elected officials who had taken on additional duties. And a young gentleman came up and he challenged the legality of that act. And I asked the town attorney that evening. And I'd like to say if he's found anything further since that night.
Yes, well, Mr. Supervisor, you know, when someone hands you something at a public meeting, it's hard to fully digest it. You know, it's nice when people give you things in advance. But the opinion that was handed to us that evening was number 91 of 53. It was from 1991. And we were referred to page 3, and the innuendo was that the state controller's position is that you could not raise a salary of an official. However, afterwards I read the entire opinion, and in the second page, the provision is, it deals with section 27 of the town law, but the controller goes on to say that this latter provision, a provision that prohibits raising an elected official's salary, however, does not prevent a town officer or employee from receiving an additional salary as compensation for a separate second town position, the holding of which is not incompatible or otherwise prohibited by law. So what that means, if you look at the duties of, in this case, the highway superintendent, the official duties of an elected highway superintendent do not include anything to do with the maintenance of the town parks. And that traditionally is a separate and distinct position. So even the opinion that was submitted to us that evening substantiates the advice I had previously given the board. Mm-hmm. It refers to an opinion from 1964, which I had read previously, and there's also one from, I believe, 1978, which would confirm the actions of the town board. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I might just also add, if there's any resident who ever has something that they feel we should consider that perhaps we overlooked, I'm certainly open to doing that, and I just appreciate it if they would give it to you in a manner timely enough to review it, digest it, and perhaps discuss it beforehand.
Yep. Thank you very much, Tom. And I know we did ask you, we were all fully within compliance with the law when we passed that resolution, and obviously we depend on you for your legal advice. So.
And do my best to keep you on the straight and narrow.
Yes, you do. And we appreciate that, so thank you very much. That being said, I'm going to open up the work session. Consider it opened. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about our MS4 annual report. Stormwater Consultants, the principal of that company, Walter Artis, is here and talking about keeping us on the straight and narrow. Walter keeps us on the straight and narrow, compliance with DEC in regards to MS4. So thank you for being here, Walter.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I requested to be on this evening's agenda to inform the town board that the 2015 Town of East Fishkill Stormwater Management Program Annual Report is complete. Its reporting period from March 10th, 2015 through March 9th, 2016. I would also request that the town attorney prepare a resolution for the next town board meeting where the town board will authorize Supervisor Hickman to sign the municipal compliance certification. This year's annual report is very generally consistent with last year's annual report. There's just two brief issues, a couple brief issues I'd like to bring to the board's attention. We are now under a new permit that became effective in 2015. However, that new permit became effective in August 1st of 2015.
Okay.
Which fell right in between, pretty much in the middle of the reporting period.
Right.
So what the DEC did was they really gave us a year's grace period, so to speak. Now, the MS4 permit, there was very little changes, unless, of course, you're located in the east of Hudson watershed.
Right.
So
Which
did-
we are, I mean,
Which
the
we are.
Stormville, the
We do
Stormville area.
Yes, Stormville area.
Yeah.
We do have lands located in the east of Hudson watershed. And if you recall, we had to prepare a retrofit plan back in 2010. That was a 5-year program.
Yeah.
Again, we were granted a year's grace period with that to 2016. And we came out fine with that.
Yeah.
What they want now is an interim progress report. I could go through and read this, it really wouldn't make much sense, but they don't give you any direction, and there's been no outreach from the department as to what form or format this progress report should
Right,
take.
right, right.
So what I will do is I'm going to call a Mr. Robert Kapowski up in Albany Central
Okay.
Office. He's the kind of the go-between between the DEC and the DEP.
Yeah.
He would be able to give me the lowdown exactly what they're looking for.
Okay.
Is it the last couple pages in this report that's specific to the watershed, or is it in the form of a memorandum?
Yep.
I don't know,
Okay.
but I will find out.
Okay, and the enhanced regulations for the east of Hudson area, which is the Stormville, anything that borders the reservoir area that feeds New York City, I
Watershed,
believe that's how it is, the watershed.
And again, very briefly, we are part of the East of Hudson Subcommittee of the
Yes.
MS4 Committee,
Yep.
Dutchess County Soil and Water, although there's only 3 of us, East Fishkill, Town of Beekman, and Dutchess County Department of Public Works.
Right, right, right.
So again, we need to develop a new retrofit plan
Yeah.
for the
And
next
we
5
had,
years.
5 years for the old retrofit
Right,
plan?
and we'll have another 5 years
And we
for
had to
this one.
reduce certain items
It was, I believe it
by-
was 7.3 kilograms of phosphorus over a
Phosphorus,
5-year
yep,
period.
yep.
Now, we did come up a couple tenths shy over that, and I submitted a report to Albany, and that was fine with them.
Okay.
The individual, again, same individual, Robert Kapowski.
Okay, good.
Very good guy to deal with. I'll be touching base with him on this.
Find out what the new
I've
new
also had
enhanced
some
regulation-
preliminary discussions with him on this next retrofit plan, myself and the MS4 coordinator for
Okay.
DPW.
Yeah.
We're going to have a meeting with him. He's very sympathetic to the fact that you've got East Fishkill, Beekman, and DPW.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
not a lot of land here to do much with.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So, he's very sympathetic to that,
Good,
so I
good, good.
think it'll be fine. And also, just one more thing in that respect, the Dutchess County Regulated MS4 Committee did grant $3,000 to our subcommittee for any
Yep.
engineering fees that we might incur with this new.
Oh, good.
grant,
Well, that's
so.
nice. No, that is very helpful, and I remember, like you said, the 2010 retrofit plan.
Right.
So, and actually, I sat in on a couple meetings of consortium down there.
Oh, yes, yes.
Very large consortium of,
23 or 26 municipalities, something like
and it
that.
was mind-boggling what they were talking about, so
I think you made the right decision.
to go out on our own with
Stick with
Beekman,
the
yes.
3 of us here.
With Dutchess County, much, much simpler, much more, I think, effective.
Yes, I agree.
So, good, very good, Walter. Anybody, any board members, any of our professionals have any questions on the MS4 report?
That interim progress report is for the DEC or
Excuse
the DEP?
It's for the DEC, yes, but it is relative to the New York City watershed, yeah, and it has to do with the retrofit plan.
Which is much, much stricter than the rest of the area.
We have a number of other enhanced requirements as well.
The only other question was for your good housekeeping plan.
Mm-hmm.
You said to have training session for some of our staff and employees. You provide that?
Yes, I actually also had a discussion.
We talked about that a
About a
few
month
weeks
ago with
ago.
Supervisor Hickman. I'll be
Yeah.
doing a training session.
And the highway
Get together with
superintendent,
Bill,
yeah.
and we'll do one for the department.
Yeah, and it'll train our people to better identify illicit discharges and have better housekeeping,
Exactly.
activities, so. Very good.
And we continue to be in compliance,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, they keep coming up with more stuff and not telling you what you gotta do.
I know, it's like I
Yes, they
said,
do.
no outreach, I'm looking at it, what format do you want this
Yeah,
in, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll find out.
Yeah, okay, very good.
And that's due December 1st, so we have a little
Okay,
time.
have a little time on that one. And this one has to be approved at the next meeting for June 1st, is that the
Yes,
deadline?
and I think you're 2 weeks from, it was the 26th, so what I'll be doing on the 27th, I'll be at my printer when he opens up in the morning,
Okay,
have copies bound,
Yeah.
get one right off to DEC that day.
okay,
I know Monday's Memorial Day, so they'll get it Tuesday, the 31st, so.
okay,
You know.
very good. All righty, if nobody has any other questions for Walter, I think we're all set. And Walter will, if you'd like to be here at the voting meeting, you're more than welcome. If anybody thinks of any questions in the meantime, please contact Walter.
Yeah,
He is
I'll
our
plan on
consultant.
coming unless you feel otherwise, just,
Okay, either or, but I think we're in good shape. And we hopefully vote to approve this and then have it submitted to
because
DEC.
I would really need you to sign that evening,
Probably that evening, yeah.
so I
we-
can get the copies made the next morning.
Very good. All righty. Great, thank you very much, Walter.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All righty, that's that. I'd like just to discuss the board, something that just came up last week, and I'm not sure, it's kind of a new phenomenon, I would say. It's called Airbnb. I don't know if anybody's heard of Airbnb. I've seen it on television. Airbnb, it's a little like Uber or these new things where you go on the website and you can find, like, well, Uber, I guess you get cars, you can get a taxi or somebody, not a taxi, somebody come pick you up now. Airbnb is if you need a place to stay, you actually go on the web, and you can find all kinds of places to stay. So somebody had actually had a place, we found there's a few places in town of East Fishkill which are listed as Airbnbs. And I know we had gotten a complaint from somebody, and a house in their neighborhood, people they didn't recognize, talking to them a little bit about, there was some housekeeping that needed to be done at the house, and about the owner, and they said, well, no, I'm just here for a week or a night or something like that. I just rented it as Airbnb. So this brings a couple concerns to us, that if we do have houses, or houses, I guess, that are in the town of East Fishkill, be listed on the website as Airbnb, number one, we have no notification of that. We have no idea. We have no contact information for the property owners, just in case, because you never know who's going to be renting it. So I just want to talk a little bit to the board about that, bring it to their attention, number one. And I don't know, Tom, I know we had discussed a little bit. I mean, basically, when it comes to zoning regulations, we have owner of record, so we know that. But this is not like a zoning thing. This is more of a use of the property.
Right, and just to be clear, what we're really dealing with are not a 6-month or a 12-month rental where property owner rents their property. What these property owners are doing is actually doing a weekend or a few-day rental and converting a residential use into a hotel-type use. And of course, that causes great consternation to neighbors, because every weekend there's a different group of people perhaps, or there's a family or group there for a week. In other communities, there's been a problem where people rent a home for the weekend and they throw very large parties, very loud, very boisterous, and there's no regulation over it. So there's two ways, obviously, to look at it. One would be that you define this as a use that's prohibited in residential districts, or on the other side, you can allow it with certain restrictions as the tent. But again, I want to emphasize, this is not dealing with a long-term rental that people are customarily used to, where they rent their a home they own, et cetera, for 6 months or a year. So I guess one of the first things would be to determine a time period and a time frame, and to see, because as you indicated, we've already had one complaint, and that same complainant has raised the issue that there's many others, and I know the town planner has went on Airbnb and found a slew of them here in East Fishkill, ranging from $90 a night to $800 a night. We found one home that sleeps 10. So,
Wow.
For $800 for a night for 10 people, you can have a nice weekend and go back to wherever.
Yeah, but that is a little concerning, because it is such a short-term rental. But I wonder, because I had no idea, it was just brought to my attention the other day. So, Michelle, our planners here, and you looked up a few of these on Airbnb.
Right,
That's,
and one of the other issues is
Speak
that
to the
where
microphone.
a bed and breakfast would typically require certain fire code.
Yeah.
Things, make sure that there's sprinkler
Well,
systems.
and that's a good thing, because you bring that up, because a person that's renting from, know a little bit from the building department, a person that's going to an apartment or someplace they don't know, the fire exits are very well marked out. So everything is very well marked out, because it's assumed you really don't know how to get out in the event of an emergency, but in an Airbnb, you wouldn't have that.
Correct, and they don't have the same, obviously the same fire extinguishers and fire alarms that
Yeah,
you would have
yeah,
to put
yeah.
in if you were having a bed and breakfast or if you're running a hotel. So they're essentially operating, short-term rentals, but they're almost operating as hotel rooms.
Yeah.
And beside the neighborhood complaints, there are also safety issues related to it.
And we should point out that the one that we had a complaint about, the owner doesn't live there. I mean, you see these on TV many times where an apartment, a resident of an apartment has an extra bedroom, they rent the bedroom out to some. These are homes that are otherwise non-owner occupied, being rented on this
Continually.
very intimate and short-term
But
basis.
it also could skirt the accessory unit
Right.
Well,
provision.
in our town law, we have, if you want to have a mother, daughter, what have you, you can have a permit for an accessory unit. We have to know who the owner is, and again, it has to be very specifically designed for fire safety.
Right.
Which
And
again,
there's an
I hadn't,
inspection and there's fire separation. and
yeah,
that kind of
and
stuff.
I hadn't thought of that, because, I'm thinking about protecting the neighbors from the Airbnb.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you actually kind of have to protect the people that are renting from the Airbnb, because they again, could be very unsafe, and who knows what kind of a place they're renting. Maybe the $50 a night place isn't all that safe. I don't know. It's really,
Correct.
I've
Well,
never,
it could be a
never.
basement room with no egress, for
Yeah,
instance.
yeah, absolutely. So it is a bit of a concern. So any
Well,
thoughts?
Yeah, I understand it's a very new business, but with that, do we know of any other town who have the similar issue that we
I
can
know-
go and look,
I know
see how they're handling?
Beacon has been talking about it for a couple years, and I got on to look to see if they'd enacted any legislation related to it, and I couldn't find any. But I do have a contact there that I'm going to try to call to see, if they have put anything in place. But currently, right now, in their code, I didn't see any regulations in place. Now, in resort towns, like Saratoga Springs and seaside towns, this is very, very common, and you'll see people renting
Yeah.
their places for the weekend or whatever it is.
So what
And it
do
may
they-
be more accepted there because
Right,
it's
they're,
standard practice.
they're a resort town.
Yeah,
East Fishkill's
exactly.
not a resort town.
No.
Exactly. So that's, sometimes you'll see, a difference in depending on the location. And of course, I think in Beacon, they were even discussing perhaps allowing, from my understanding, is perhaps allowing certain neighborhoods to have Airbnb and others not. So I don't know how that all panned out, but I'm going to see if I can find out.
Okay. Okay, I have a seaside place on the ocean, and I don't live there all year round, and I want to rent it out. And so I may rent it for a week, I may rent it for a month. Do you think the towns there have any idea? I wonder if you'd register with the town?
Yes.
You'd have to register. I mean, I think at the least we could require some kind of
If it's not owner
registration.
occupied, that's the minimum you want to do, is at least have people register so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
if the police are called to an unruly situation, et cetera, they can reach out to the owner.
The owner, yeah.
Say to the owner, you had a problem with your rental.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because really, that's the person who can be held
Yeah,
responsible for that.
yeah.
I think that in the seaside towns, what happens if you're a property owner, you get a pass for the beach. If you're not, you don't. So they have to register the person's name. So that's how they get to register
point, yeah,
the
good
people's name.
point.
But how would we ever,
You want to use brush drop-off, you have to register, so we'll have to know that you have to know the owner, so. Yeah, we don't have a beach, we have brush drop-off.
Yeah, Red Wing.
Yeah, we
And
do.
Red Wing, you
We
have to be,
beach.
a resident. Something I think we're going to have to look into further. Any other thoughts? But I think the minimum, we need to have some sort of registration, so we have a contact.
There was a report that I was able to find today, done by the New York State Attorney General in October of 2014 about the New York City Airbnb issue, because I think it's some staggering amount that it's gone up from 2010 to 2014 in what they call single temporary rentals or short-term rentals. And essentially, what they say in this report is that for a large majority of them, probably over 70%, are really in violation of New York State law by renting the way they're renting because of the building code issues and other
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
So certainly, we'd have to look at, at a minimum, what we would require to make sure that they were in line with the New York State Building Code.
Right, they have to be in compliance, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll have to take a look at this, put
It's also
together.
hard to find everybody
Yeah.
doing this, too. That's the other part of it, because I'm sure there's other places besides Airbnb where people are doing short-term rentals, that's what the best known. But it's also, I think, they said it was a $25.5 billion industry, and
It's
there's
huge.
very strong lobbyists
Yeah,
now
yeah.
for it, so.
Well, I think what we're looking to do, number one, is protect the neighborhood, make sure it doesn't get out of control, obviously, and we're not going to have our police department like Airbnb department, I mean, but when they come up, when somebody calls with a complaint and says, oh, something's going on over there's a party, or maybe get a call for a party or something, then at least we can say, oh, you know what? We have to check into this, but then how would you get them registered in the first place? They're not going to just come out and say, oh, yes, we have one. Yeah.
But when you rent and you go somewhere, I think all of us kind of presume that the property
Meets code.
Yeah.
meets some sort of a code.
Yeah.
And, in our private homes, if our smoke detector battery dies or goes out, shame on us if we don't fix it, but that's kind of our home and we do what we want in it. But if I take my home with a smoke, I'm just using a
Yeah,
very simplistic thing, without a working smoke detector, and I rent it out to a group of strangers and there's a fire in the
And they said
so
if there's
that
a smoke,
combined with
yeah.
perhaps no exit signs or whatever. So
Yeah.
I do think that, and these days, it's always the town's fault.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or otherwise, it's always the town's fault, because we're the government
Mm-hmm.
closest to the people. And while it's, what statistically it's probably 1 in a million that something would happen, if it does, and as Michelle indicates, this is something to look at over the next period of time, because as the next subject with solar panels and everything, it's happened, and our laws haven't caught up to things for it, so.
Yeah. I'm trying to think now, and I rarely go on vacation, but I do think once in a while I'd go on to some place, my wife would rent a place on a beach, and they usually have a little thing saying, this is this and this is that. I don't know, but like you say, who knows if the smoke detector works, who knows? So I think it's something that we're going to have to give some thought to, and possibly if you want to give some thought to any regulations you think that, I think, we always say defining short-term, number one, is going to be a challenge in itself. Obviously, a day rental is short-term, but is a month rental short-term? We have to give that some thought. And if we register you, and what would be the criteria, and you have to be in compliance with New York State Building Code, so it does get rather complicated quickly. So, all right.
That just means a lot of people aren't gonna wanna do it.
Oh,
They're not gonna
absolutely.
register.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see them coming out and registering.
Because how many of them are actually paying taxes, or where's that money going?
And there's other interesting, I don't know that would happen here, but there's folks that will rent a place, and then they'll Airbnb it when they go away for the weekend so that they can make income, and they're actually Airbnb-ing someone else's.
Somewhere else, it's,
Someone else's home.
wow.
So
Yep,
it's.
yep.
I mean,
So
there's
that
all
the
sorts-
property owner
it's-
may not even be
There's
aware
all
of
sorts
it.
of things that we scenarios that we can't even think about right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
But that everybody else is busily
Yeah,
working on.
But we're dealing with this now because a resident complained.
yeah.
And
It's come to our attention, so we have to take a look at the
it's not
situation.
that we're looking for these things, but it's
Yeah.
already happening, and a resident has already been impacted by, I guess, the loss of the sense of security of not knowing.
Sure,
you
who's
know,
next
regular
door?
use of a home.
Yeah.
Maybe some of our larger parcels, in the mountains and the lakes and everything rendered themselves acceptable for that kind of use. But I don't think in a typical
Neighborhood,
subdivision area,
yeah.
you might feel as comfortable. I don't know, but that's something you have to.
Okay. All right, we'll have to give it some thought. It's, again, just came up, so I thought we should discuss it a little bit, and we'll have to have some kind of a registration, some kind of rudimentary regulation, so. All right. And if anybody has any thoughts, send an email, give a call, if you want to put anything together, let's see what we can do. Second on the agenda, too, for discussion tonight, as Tom said, in addition to the Airbnb, is the solar law, because we do have people coming in for putting solar panels on their houses. And actually, one of the big things now is not to put it on the roof. It seems to be a lot of these ground mounts. A lot more accessible, a lot easier to install. But again, I know we had discussed this a few months ago. Obviously, we had put together, Tom and Michelle had put together this law, defining what it is, reasons for the law, definitions, and standards. And of course, in the standards, they say roof for the roof mounted, where it's got to be in case you have a fire. Fireman has to get up on the roof, so you can't block the fireman from getting up on the roof, things of that nature. And then the other one's on the ground. The ground mounts is something that we should take a look at too, because ground mounts, obviously, again, depending on where you are, you know, your neighbor, as a neighbor, you really don't want to have to look at it. We'd like to have it screened appropriately. So there are just some things in the proposed law that we have. And I don't know if anybody wants to discuss any of this tonight.
We had previously given you a law to deal with the roof-mounted ones, and then since then, many people have come in for permits for, as the supervisor indicated, on the property. And the question arises, you know, should they be allowed anywhere on the lot, just in the rear yard? Should there be some setbacks or screening requirements? The ones on the roof now, as far as the items you mentioned, the New York State Fire Code is being amended by the state, which will require certain minimum distances from the peak of a roof to the edge of the roof. So that will kind of be regulated under that law. So this kind of combines what we previously talked about with dealing with situations that are becoming more prevalent in the town, and that is the solar array. And we're not talking about if they're on a commercial property, a solar array can go on a commercial property. It's deemed an accessory use. And
As
so
part of
that
the
goes
site
through
plan.
a planning board
Yeah.
screening, review process, which ends up screening. But these would be, this would help in that process, but this also would deal in the residential zone with persons who want to place panels not on their roof, but in their yard, side yard. We've had applications to put them in drainage easements that are in the front side yard, things like that. So
We
it's
have to
kind of
adopt
trying to
some
balance it a
standards,
little
yeah.
bit so that we're not preventing them, but we're just saying you can have them. And obviously, you have to take into account where the sun is.
What about properties with agricultural exemptions?
Well,
They'd have all the same exemptions.
any property that has agricultural exemption, if the owner of that property it's not an exemption if they're in an agricultural district. If they show that whatever activity they're doing is in furtherance of farming, they're exempt from any prohibition by a local government. So if solar panels are into, and I believe there's a opinion of the Commissioner of Agriculture to that effect, it's allowable, they can place them on their property. And they have to try to accommodate compliance with setbacks and things, but they're not obligated to. They can appeal to the Commissioner of Agriculture. It's all a separate thing.
Because I know that some farms in our town have looked into this already, and some were even looking for grants to help them, but now there's different programs out there.
Well, maybe we're talking today, a solar farm
Right.
may not be exempt by the Commissioner of Agriculture, but if they put in solar panels to provide
Or the farm.
more power for their barns or things like that, those would be exempt.
Okay, so a solar farm on a
Solar
farm would
farm.
not be allowed?
Right.
Because they're not supposed to be an energy producer themselves, they'd be actually then selling the energy.
The legislature hasn't defined
Passed
farm
yet.
to be a solar
Solar
farm
So
farm.
the state legislature hasn't passed a law allowing,
to preempt us.
okay, so if you have solar panels on your home and you provide excess, you generate excess energy, you can't get paid for that energy
Well,
now.
you can't exceed, I think it's 125%.
Yeah.
25% of the power of the
Percentage.
home, some of these
So-
rules.
so-
But those rules, I believe, are imposed by the Public Service Commission currently.
Okay.
Okay, so the farm
Yeah.
is under that guidelines also?
Right.
So, Tom, you're saying that the state legislature right now forbids solar farming
No, it
in New York
doesn't,
State?
I'm not saying forbids it on a farm, but what happens is when you're a farmer and you're in an agricultural district, and when I say a district, that can be your individual property. You have to be over 10 acres, I think it is now.
You have to have so
Something
much
like that.
sales of product.
And you have to
yeah.
have a minimum income from farming in the course of a year then the state legislature has given special protection to that activity, so that anything we normally regulate under zoning doesn't apply to that property if it unduly interferes with farming. So if they want to build a barn, they still have to get a building permit because that's a state code, but where it's located may not have to adhere to a 50-foot setback, et cetera, if that would unduly burden the farmer. So at this time, they could attach panels for the buildings and everything, and if you allow it under zoning to have a solar farm, they could have it, but they can't get it, they can't exempt themselves based on the agricultural law.
Okay.
I attended I attended a seminar about farms that are no longer farming,
Right.
but some of the farmers at that event, their intent was to maybe go this way. This was actually happening in the north, not too far from here. But there are some farms that are no longer farming their properties.
Right.
And some of them would like to create,
Solar farms.
to sell, solar farms to sell back.
Sell the power.
Solar power. I mean, there might be something like that in this community. Seems like with the paragraph B, we are kind of, at this point, not allowing anybody, let's say, that has 10 acres or more, to entertain that idea.
Well, you can
I mean,
always add
is
that.
it possible, maybe?
You can always add that. That was, quite frankly, that wasn't contemplated in the drafting of this.
No.
But
Is
certainly,
it possible to possibly?
Yeah, but-
I mean, going through the reviews, of course, the proper reviews, but there are certain people, I mean, when I attended, there were quite a few old farmers that they no longer used, talking.
But then, so they'd be actually going to the planning board, there'd be a planning board report, because this is a for-profit, they're now actually becoming a power provider, so they would have to go to the planning board.
Yeah,
For
I mean,
approval.
going through the proper reviews,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
giving them a chance to utilize some of their property.
I think the biggest issue.
And keep the property green at the same
biggest issue
time.
you would have in adopting a law of that kind is in the environmental review, the SEQR law review. You would have to give a lot of study to the visual impacts. Because, like, for instance, as you come up to Taconic, beautiful farm to the left, what would be the impact if 10 acres was now converted into solar panels? So I think that would be the biggest process we would have to go
Right.
through, would be the visual.
Depending where it's at. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, they have to go through the reviews.
But yes, you can enable that.
But giving somebody a chance at least to
Oh,
utilize
absolutely,
and
yeah.
keep their property green. Some people don't want to sell to build,
No.
but rather keep it like that, so probably
The hard
keeping
part's
it.
going to be where they're going to sell that energy
Sorry?
to. The hard part's going to be where they're going to sell that energy to.
Oh, they'll
They sell
buy
it back to the main grid.
Well, they're only allowed to,
Well, no,
Do
that's on a
10, 15.
residential.
no, that's commercial too.
Well, commercial, then
Because they looked at putting them on the Knights of Columbus Hall. That's commercial property, and we're only allowed 10, 15% over what we bring in.
25%.
Yeah, you're looking at becoming a power provider now, and I don't know what, you'd have to
Yeah,
probably
that's
go
So
through
that's
this.
another whole set of hoops.
Yeah.
Well, you have to apply to Public Service
Public
Commission.
Service
Yeah, there is a procedure that you have to really follow, but as far as us, town, not allowing, I mean, we kind of,
Many towns are actually getting involved in this, where they take municipal properties, they're putting solar farms on it.
Right.
And they're selling that back to the grid, but the reduced power is credited to the benefit of the people of the town.
I like that.
That's in its infancy with the Public Service Commission
it's,
they're working.
it's the same idea, whether it's private or public. I mean, it's the same idea.
And I don't really think there's anything in this law that restricts that.
Well,
because it just
paragraph
says-
B kind of
Comply with
blocks, it's not really specific, but it kind of determines that not for resale, which is basically what we're talking about right now.
Well, I think what you would have to do, I'm sorry, you would have to add a whole separate provision to allow bulk
Right.
farms like that, and probably think about all the setbacks.
Probably
Yeah.
put something in there, and again, going through the proper reviews.
Yeah, but it does allow it to go to planning board, so absolutely.
You could put it as a permitted use in certain districts with, under certain conditions, or you could, whatever you were.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what
that
what
would
would
be
the
good.
district be? It'd be most likely an industrial district. Would it be, or a large Yeah.
farms that
A lot
aren't
of
in-
farms,
Yeah, you have a lot of farms that are
Would you
not
have
being
it in R
utilized as farms no
with a
more.
minimum of 100 acres or something like that? Something to look into. Okay. I would like to get this law moving, though, because we do have, the residential seem to be coming in pretty regularly, so if everybody would take a look at their law, mark it up, to anything everybody thinks should be changed, and submit it to the attorney, and we'll take a look, and I would like
Michelle
to
and
get
the
it.
attorney
The
together.
planner more than the
The
attorney.
planner more than the attorney? Okay, Michelle, if you wouldn't mind?
Requires creativity, so I
Oh,
just go to the
okay,
planner.
okay. Why don't we do is submit it to the planner, and then, Michelle, you'll submit it to the attorney, see if it's legal.
So you
And,
put some provision in there for the farms then?
I don't know if I'll put it into this particular law, but I'll look to see if there's another location, because I'm not sure, I mean, it's possible I can add something in here to restrict it, but I think it might be cleaner to separate it and put it in.
And quite frankly,
Yeah.
we're finding a lot of times, if you look to upstate communities, they're far more advanced in these areas than we are down here or below, so that Michelle is good at finding things
Yeah.
that may fit the bill.
All right.
Yeah.
It prevents a lot of unnecessary expense.
Yeah. I bet they don't have Airbnbs up there, though.
And they're not copyrighted, so you can use it.
On the farm.
Saratoga does.
Well, Saratoga might, I'm stand corrected, no. All right, if you would, but I would like to get this law moving, because like I said, we do seem to be getting quite a bit of the residential, so
Yeah,
if you're okay.
Just because we have had some go in now, have we heard any other complaints about solar panels, or is there anything that anyone has heard in particular about any of the ones that have already gone in that we might need to address? That's another thing to consider, if you've heard any comments about things. Nice to know.
We'll do that. We'll take care of that. All righty. Great. Thank you. Discussion on the water and sewer funding, what we lovingly call our 209Qs that have been written by our town engineer, Scott Bryant, and map plan report for the establishment of the John Jay Sewer Improvement Area and the townwide water improvements in the town of East Fishkill. And Scott, looking through this, one of the areas that we need to resolve is going to be Revere Park, and I see that this allows for a connection.
Yes, it does.
To Revere Park to Fishkill Plains.
Exactly.
So that would be a huge step. I think that'd be a great thing to do. And a couple of the other things I see we talk about, the connections down at the Dutchess County water line to our existing water main down there, but I think it looks good. Because things are starting to move along with the redevelopment the projects down on 52, and because, as we know, the dome is actually being built, they're pouring their footings as we speak, we do have the need to run a sewer line from that property over to Global Foundries. So that is one of the reasons that we do need, especially with the sewer, we need to keep that moving right along. So, anybody have any questions on the projects? I know we've discussed them before, but I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with them. The people in the districts will be paying for all of the expenses of the sewer and water services. We bundled a lot together for the water.
For the borrowing, it's all bundled together.
Yeah, and then will be allocated as per district.
Portion per district,
Yep.
which is included in the map plan report.
So, while we're talking about including who's going to be in the district, it was going to go as far as where the dome was going to be and the Orthopedic Associates, is that correct?
No.
Are we talking water or are we talking sewer?
Sewer.
Sewer.
Sewer is the dome, the school, and we are crossing 52 for Archway Plaza.
For Archway Plaza. Now, what about, there's other properties down that way, there's a bank, there's Corporate Park Drive.
Yeah,
Can
we reached
We
out.
reached out to a couple of closest ones, because, you know, you reach a point that if you can't connect the dots, then, you know, you really economically
Can't go any further
can't go
than
any
that.
further.
yeah.
So we reached out to the couple beyond, right off Lake Drive, I think it was Houlihan and the Landscape, neither one was interested at this time, so we're just gonna,
Well, that
come
50,
across with
I
a-
mentioned because that
And
52 Corporate Park is large.
Well, in Corporate Park.
and we've had discussions with 52 Corporate Park. We've
Okay.
gone back and forth because this has changed several times. At one point, we had the West Campus in,
Yep,
and they didn't
yep.
want to be in, and we did have some discussions, and we left it open to them, because we had a window here that we needed a
Yeah.
finite decision so we could move forward and meet the deadline for the dome. And we did leave it open to them that if they ultimately decided that they wanted to come in, that they could come in. But there is, you know, a hefty price tag associated with being in
That's
the
up to
district.
them then, you know.
And, you know, I guess if, I mean, currently, the septic meets their demands. That's what I've been told currently. So I guess if
But we
in
could
the
always-
future,
yes.
they ramp up or they repurpose their site,
It's a big site.
they could certainly, I mean, we do have excess capacity in the pump station to handle that, so. And then there would be a buy-in, of course,
Yeah.
at whatever time they do elect to come in.
And for water too, what would be the water scenario?
Well, the water is a little simpler. I mean, we have to make one connection, and then they would just tap into the main out on 52, wherever they happen to be.
Okay,
Whereas the pump station, you have to actually get to the pump station.
okay.
And again, whether they, you know, purpose of the public hearing, if they change their mind, I mean, I know one business has been flip-flopping steady on me, and I'm like, look, I need, you know, I need
You
a
need to-
decision, you know, so if you decide later you want in, you can get in, and this is what you're gonna have to pay.
You have to pay.
I would just like to point out, when you read the reports, and the public hearing at the next meeting would be a borrowing of approximately $1 million for the sewer, which will be paid back by the users of the sewer. The water money, which is about was it two?
Well, just to be a little tighter, the sewer's about 1.2, I
Right.
think.
Right.
And the water ultimately is another million plus a little bit.
Right.
Depending on whether the EPA comes on board.
That's the big
But
question,
the
yeah.
point I'd like to make is, as Councilman Cassidy at one meeting said, the water is really, we're establishing a credit line because we have to build the system, but because of the fact that the system will allow Toll Brothers not to build a tank, we have an agreement with them that they'll pay us $950,000 instead of building a tank, because they'll be able to draw the water. So while we may have to lay out that money initially, they pay it to us at different milestones. That would immediately go to reduce the credit line.
Right.
So I don't want anyone to think that with the water, that this is a new debt for the town. It would be for several months. If the EPA,
That's
when
the
they're
big one.
ready to do the North Hopewell District, there's a letter agreement with them where they're going to contribute their proportionate share of our system being able to provide the water into the pipes they're going to put in, and that's it'll be close to $2 million.
Yeah.
Obviously, with that part of it, we don't have to build it until they sign a commitment to do it, but we're going to have you establish this credit line so that if we're doing it, we can go ahead. And very little of the money will continue to be debt, a couple $100,000, which would be spread out over the various water districts that are going to receive supplemental water supply.
Yep.
And then that's what enables this system to provide more water to the people in the districts now who are either completely at capacity, need more water, et cetera.
Thank you.
Now, there's no big penalty for early payment back on your loan, right, Mark? So if we borrow,
No, yeah, we would
we
do
take a credit line
short-term-
of $3 million.
Right.
We don't have to keep it for 2 years. If we pay back $2 million of it,
No, yeah, we would do all short-term borrowing and
Right.
be able to ramp up or draw down as necessary.
You have up to 5 years after you adopt a resolution authorizing a bond to do what they call bond anticipation notes, which is merely a borrowing for what you need. So if the first year you need $300,000,
take
you only borrow $300,000, and you can choose how long you want to borrow that money for. It could be 3 months, 6 months, or up to a year. And then the only thing
Renew
you
it.
have to do is pay interest on that. You can do that for the first 5 years. At the end of 5 years, whatever debt is there must be converted then into the bond.
it's the same as a home equity loan.
Yep.
Virtually, yes.
Yep.
But all the rates here are based on the long-term financing.
Yeah. And I should point out, too, that the bands, the short-term borrowings that we do is about 1%, or less, a little above, so it's almost free money.
Yeah, free
Yeah,
money.
the interest rates are very
Free money.
reasonable on a ban, so we wouldn't say that, so. Any questions, though? Very important we get these
Scott.
projects moving.
Scott, as far as Shenandoah, right, with the new water lines, they will be hooking up to the water that we will be providing. So we will not be buying water from Fishkill anymore, correct?
Well, that's not 100%.
No, we'd
There
be
has to be a
kicking
little
that.
study done in terms of the age of the water to make sure that once we get the water from the county, and by the time it goes into the Shenandoah system, that it's not too old.
They have
based
so
on-
many days from,
on the final organic
Yeah.
count based on the new filter system, so there's a little bit of a question mark. There's a scenario that we might just take the county water to service the immediate dome area and still have to buy water from Fishkill, but
So what do you
We-
have
we don't
over
have the
here?
hard
I know
answer on
you-
that.
I know that you have it. the
we have
Shenandoah.
anticipating that we can supply Shenandoah. It might be a blend, it might be 100%, or it might actually just wind up just being the John Jay area, depending on what
yeah.
the final filtered water quality is
Yeah.
coming from the county.
and
Because
this,
they're
Our
building-
goal is to
they're building
use
a new
that water,
system,
but
yeah.
I don't want to commit 100% to that until we know the quality of that water. But either way, we want that connection to supply
absolutely.
the dome area, all that development,
anything
because we
else.
can't get it from Fishkill. We're already maxed out with
Yeah.
Fishkill.
Yeah, but we're gonna need the water there before the county's done building the water, the new filter system.
They'll
we
be
have
done
enough
end of
initially for
July,
the
I think, with a new system.
No, we have enough for the dome initially.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
For
The
the
dome,
first phase. We
yeah.
have 10,000, ultimately they need 15, we have 10 right now. so.
Yeah. But we met with Dutchess County Water and Wastewater and got an update on the project, the filters. I think Randy Allstat, the operator up there, is pretty positive they're going to be on by the end of the summer.
Wow.
And this will be a very good news for us. But what you're talking about, the age of water, this is a relatively new thing, because when we did the Shenandoah line,
It was never studied before.
they never
only-
studied it.
Only recently they
Yeah,
started studying that.
only recently has this become an issue, because now that we're doing the
EPA site, that's really the first project that they started
Yeah,
studying age
yeah.
of water.
And we actually had to change our transmission main
Reduce the age
to
of the
reduce
water.
the age of the water. So we'd like to say we're done with Fishkill, but because of the age of water issue, we may still keep them on. So we'll have to see how
Now,
it
the
goes.
water that we will be getting from the county is the same line that is supplying Global Foundries
Yes,
right now?
correct.
Same one.
And Hopewell Glen.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll be happy when we get the filters completed.
And that water is good to use? I
Well,
thought that there was some issues with that water.
up until now, there have been issues, and that's why they're spending, I think, $16 or $18 million on a new filtration
Filters,
system.
yeah, they needed a new.
It's partially complete. They have some of the filters in. They are seeing a reduction in the numbers, but, until it's 100% complete,
But,
the verdict's still out. But we are seeing improvement in
and
what
the
they've installed
problem
so
that
far.
we have to deal with is, as Scott indicated, the age of the water. When it gets to the Hopewell Glen subdivision, the age of the water has the
Reacting.
trihalmethane.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from all this, but, and the new filters are supposed to reduce the,
And it's a function of what the
decomposition that
final
takes place,
quality is
so.
coming out of the plant, goes into that formula to know, okay, how old can it be before you start having issues, so. So that we still have to follow through once the filters are online, so.
but the
either
chemists,
way, we
the
need
chemists say
connection
it's going to work.
Yes.
Leave it up to the chemist.
Any other questions though on the 209 Qs? Again, because of the things that are happening, especially with the redevelopment projects down on the Global Foundry site, do have to move along, because hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll be seeing some significant demands for water and sewer down there. We're looking forward to that. Yeah. All right, no other questions on that? If you have any questions, you think of anything during the week or anything, give the attorney a call, give the engineer a call. I don't think you have to call the planner on the 209 Qs,
And
but,
then just maybe while we're on this subject,
Yeah.
so we've been working so far on the sewer project, getting those plans to the health department.
Yeah.
And we hope maybe we can get that job out to bid,
July?
October.
Oh, well, we'd go out to bid,
Or
we hope to
or
get
September.
approval from the DOH, like
Well, our
July.
submission is June 1st, we actually ran through the timeline, and I
Okay.
think we were looking at the August meeting.
To authorize the
hopefully
bidding?
Authorize the bidding.
Yep.
And sometime after that, 45 days or whatever.
We'd award the bid hopefully
Right,
around
right.
October.
So that'll be coming, and then the tank project here in the hamlet, probably right behind that. So we're gonna be looking to make a couple of awards this fall.
Yeah. And you met with the tank people.
And actually, Fishkill Plains is a pretty one, that's coming up also, so that one's gonna come up pretty quick.
Fishkill Plains, we put the new well in service. Well, we didn't put it in service yet, we're not allowed to put it in service.
We have an
drilled a new
emergency
well.
right now, basically at the Fishkill Plains, which allowed us to go ahead and put the well in.
Yeah.
We've got quotes now to put the new pump in.
Yeah.
Electrical controls. We still have to get quotes for the filter system.
Well, that's the thing, we have to increase the filters at Fishkill Plains now for the third well.
For the
correct?
Guidi, for the Guidi.
For the Guidi. Oh, for the Guidi and not for the,
Iron and manganese, we had
have
enough
enough to
excess
cover that,
capacity with
yeah.
the original project, but
Okay.
now, because of the new
yeah,
requirements,
for Guidi.
we have to put Guidi filters in.
DEC made their requirements a lot stricter as far as drilling wells, and if you have what they call groundwater influence, evidence of groundwater influence, or suspicion of groundwater influence.
You're less than 50 feet, you have to basically put the Guidi system in.
And the Guidi system
Our
is,
existing wells are 30 feet, 35, no Guidi system, but they're
Yeah.
existing. Our new well's about 50 foot deep, but it requires a Guidi system.
much is a Guidi
But at
system?
that point, all the wells will be treated, which, in reality
yeah.
is a good thing, so.
yeah, how much is the Guidi system?
That filter system's around 100,000.
Okay, all right, not too bad, not too bad. It's always something, though, it just, but, good. So we'll
We all
be-
know how important water is. I mean,
One never knows. I have my well, I'd hate to think what would happen.
Scott, today I was talking to a local, I think he's been drilling wells in the area. He says that, I don't know, but according to him, there is a large amount of good water in the Robinson Lane area over there. One of the largest aquifers in
Oh, I know,
town.
you're talking to the guy that drilled all those wells, right?
I know he's been
that was the
doing
ponds
a lot
project or something? There was
Yeah.
some data over there, yeah.
Yeah,
I know in the past, he was doing a lot of work,
Yeah.
and he worked with a lot of.
ocean of water, they
This
say.
is this is the first time I hear of this, but
Yeah.
if in case, what are the chances of us using any of that?
Well, if you look
Put
at
over
it,
there.
Fishkill Plains water probably is part of that hydraulic system, don't you think?
Could be.
It's very
Yeah,
close.
Very close.
You know, when we have our wells pumping, what's our new well pumping, 400 gallons a minute?
430 gallons a minute, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the
So-
reality is, I think if we needed to increase Fishkill Plains, we would pop another well right there because our infrastructure is
yeah,
there.
yeah.
If you go out to the ponds, you drill a well, you got to bring the raw water into a treatment center, or you have to invest in a new treatment center and every
Out
time.
there.
Yeah, so that's where it gets.
What kind of water they're using now to wash the garage that they have over there? What, are they hooked up to the regular wells?
They are hooked up to Fishkill Plains. Health Department gave them that approval.
To our wells?
Really unbeknownst to us, the Health
Yeah,
Department
we're
approved that.
not happy with the health department on that one.
So they took a lot of water that we could use for
Whatever
other.
they're using, Health Department. They called it a pre-existing site and signed off on it. We found out after the fact.
You know, it's funny because they do a lot of stuff, a lot of the school district, they do a lot of the work, and they never consult the town. When I attend those meetings, they said, have you approached the town? They said,
Yeah.
we don't need to.
Well, state of the New York, what is that, the
Seems
The
like,
Education Department does the building permits and.
I understand, yeah, they
Unbelievable.
override, but at the same time,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
that's how we got this problem with the water at the bus garage.
there's gotta be a better
The
way.
only thing I can say is, I mean, right now, they're on a benefit. We are switching over to actual metered usage.
Yep.
They are in the district, they'll pay whatever the incremental increase is for the new filter system and new well. I mean, they'll share in that,
So they'll
in
pay
that
for it,
payment.
yeah.
And that's all fine and good going forward, but.
Going forward.
You know, when we do an analysis and the Board of Health then says we don't have enough capacity, new businesses want to go down that district, and we just dealt
Well,
with
the
that a
argument we
year
made
ago.
is you gave water to the school for the new car wash, and
And
we're
you
trying
wanna
to
give it
connect
to a
with
new
Revere Park for
business,
3
right.
years, you know?
That's what I'm saying.
And then the existing customers, so. I-
And to do that type of a planning, which they have discussed that for a couple of years, without notifying the town, I think
It's
it's,
just an assumption that we had water
Yeah,
by the health department, and, which was wrong.
not even make a phone call and says, hey, look,
Right.
no, they don't call.
They claim they call us all the time, but
Yeah,
they don't.
they claimed it was a pre-existing use, but we couldn't figure that one out.
Or zoning, or they call our zoning people, but they
Yeah.
don't.
But anyway, once we get the
For
new well.
instance, the new building there at Taconic Innovation, they allow to hook up for fire protection, but they would not allow them to take water. So they have spent a lot of money to put a filter system in, but yet they get that same amount of water as washing school buses right now.
that's insane.
But when we get the new well in, we get the Gwitty filters in.
Yeah, but they are
Then we
still
have
out there, large sum of money putting a filter system in, and they invested in the water main already. I mean, they extended the water main up to their building just to
Yeah.
have the fire protection,
Oh,
but,
for Taconic?
Yeah.
I'll look at it.
but they are so
It will.
staunch where they draw lines in who can hook up, but yet in the school, they just signed off on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a nice business to go in there, children being taught and everything else, and, you know,
They don't want to hear
it
it.
wasn't right.
It's a Department of Health decision. Our friends up at the county. And we just got a laundry list of what they're requiring for us at Revere Park.
To hook up the orthophosphate
Yeah,
system.
yeah. So that's why it'd be really good if we can just connect them to Fishkill Plains and be done with it.
Well, that's what we're going to continue to push for, just making the
Yeah.
connection,
Absolutely.
so.
How long before Revere Park go give them water from Fishkill Plains?
Well, in the health department's current position is that they want the new well connected, filters installed. They actually want us to rehab the old wells, which I think is way, way above and beyond what we should be required to do, but we'll fight that battle when we get to it. But with all that said, you know, this is May, first of the year. We would like to hook up after the summer, after our peak demand is down, because we can actually demonstrate that, you know, once the end of September rolls around and the usage is down, we have plenty of water. And that, you know, we'll have everything online December, January, and it'll all work out. But they're so rigid, you know, because it's not in a book. You know, they just want to know everything's connected, even though, and they look at annual average numbers and,
Yeah.
you know, so.
How is our meters over at Fishkill Plains? Are we almost complete with all the meter hookups?
Slowly, we're not 100%, but we're switched
What
over
about
to.
20 of them, Mark?
Now, right?
There's,
We're going to be billing.
we're going to be billing, we're very close. We went to bill based on usage and found that the information we had on the meter numbers at each house wasn't entirely accurate. So we had
Okay.
to send people back out into the field and get those numbers off the meters.
Okay.
There are a few houses that have still not hooked up meters, and they're paying a $200 per quarter penalty.
Okay. But I think that'll also be key to the
It'll help
Department of Health.
reduce, yeah, because when
Yeah.
you look at the water
Here,
usage.
the actual usages, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at Breadview, and we're using 165 gallons a day, and then you look at Fishkill Plains, we're using 265 gallons a day. You know, there's a lot of waste, you know.
Right. And if they're accurate numbers too, because,
Yeah.
you know, Board of Health, they assign a number to a residence, and
And
it's like,
there's another key component. Without metered usage, we really have no way of knowing if hasn't been a leak out there for 10 years that we don't know about. That's the problem, not having meters at the end that you can reconcile ever so often. So we might find a leak out there yet.
I mean, a couple of months ago, they were having problems, some of the people weren't getting the meters, but they got in touch with those people and
there's a
they're
little
back out and storing
there's a
them?
little backup
They were
where they had
back up on 'em?
ordered some, and they didn't
There
get
were a
out
little
to do
period that they
them,
had
yeah.
ordered some extra ones, yeah.
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 I think they're caught up
So
with
they're
that.
pretty much all hooked up now, then, just a couple left.
Well, and the ones that aren't are paying significant penalties, which amazes us because
It used to be about 10, I think.
why
that
would you
they're
pay
still
extra
trying to
money
get,
if you
right?
could just get your
5 to
meter
10 units.
Well, one of them's a big one. One of them is Summerlin Plaza out there. I've been trying to get them to put meters on. So, I mean, $200 a quarter for them, they're laughing because it's a
Sure,
big
for
plaza.
them.
And even when they come in for fit-outs, we say, you know, you really got to get
Yeah.
the meters in, but we're trying to,
How many benefit units do they have out there?
oh, it's probably 40 or more.
Well, shouldn't it be $200 a benefit unit then? Shouldn't be just a flat, I wonder.
Good question. I think they're only being charged a $200 penalty, but maybe
It should be per
it should be
benefit unit.
$200 per benefit unit.
Yes, take a look, see what they're being charged. I think we need to
Yep.
help them come around a little bit.
Encourage them, because we've been
Yeah.
trying to for years, you know.
Yep. Yeah, they've been difficult. All righty, any other questions on water, sewer? No, okay.
And the public hearing is at the next
Next,
meeting.
at the May meeting, we're going to have the public hearing on the map plan report for the establishment of the townwide water improvement and the sewer improvement areas. And Tom, just let me ask you, after the public hearing is held, what is the scenario after that? We hold the public hearing,
we hold the public hearing.
take
you can-
comments?
You can
Yep.
close if you close the public hearing that night, you're free to adopt the negative declaration of the seeker and the bond resolution. Then the town clerk has to publish a notice of the bond resolution, and there's a 30-day period that you have to wait until you can
Go to the bond
access the
market.
money.
Okay, very good, very good. All right,
Somebody wants to lend you the money.
I'm sure we'll be okay with that.
If we have any questions for the town attorney, can we ask them that night?
Absolutely. It's a conference.
All righty.
At a conference
That's
call?
it. One thing I did want to talk about a little bit, and I know our highway superintendent's with us tonight. Bill, you want to come up? Just talk a little bit about the last town board meeting. We had some residents come up, and I talked to them in the lobby about their roads. The roads that they were concerned with were East Hill Cross Road, the top part of Miller Hill Road. I think Falcon Crest, we're going to do Falcon Crest. We figured we can afford to do Falcon Crest this year. But they were concerned about their roads, and, you know, it's just, with budgets being as tight as they are, it's really hard. I mean, we should be putting more money into paving. It's just very, very challenging to find that money. So I just want to talk with Bill. Bill, you submitted to me a list of what you're proposing for next year.
That's correct.
And I think we're looking at $800,000 of paving and $100 and some odd thousand dollars of drainage work. Part of that's going to have to be done east to Crossroad, right?
East to Crossroad needs major drainage.
Yes, it does. Now, let me ask you, was that still a ditch line on East to Crossroad?
Yes, it is.
The whole length of it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that would be very helpful if we could take care of that ditch line
We're going to
issue.
start it next week. It's on our schedule, and we'll continue on until we're ready to pave in 17.
Okay, sounds good. What size pipe, 18-inch?
All depends upon the area.
Okay,
We
okay.
have to tie in some existing,
Oh, there is some there?
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Some crossovers are there, yes.
Okay, okay.
So,
So we
the
want,
total price of drainage and paving anticipated for next year is $917,000.
yeah. Now, this year we spent, what did we spend in paving?
685, and I have another 32 for Falcon Crest.
Yeah,
So we're about 715.
about 750? 715.
715,
Yeah.
but again, we did not complete Lime Kiln, we did not complete East Hook Crossroads, so there are roads out there that, these roads, by the way, just so everybody understands, are previous roads that the previous highway superintendent has had on his wish list for numerous years. So it's not something that, all of a sudden have deteriorated that needed paving. So we haven't even got into the roads that I'd like to pave.
We're still working on the old list.
We're still working on the 2015, 2014 list
Yep.
of Mr. Miller's list. So my bottom line is, gentlemen, and everybody hates it to talk about it, but we have to invest in an asset of this town. The asset's our road system. And the only way you're gonna do that is to give the highway department more money for paving and drainage.
Yeah.
And the only way you're gonna do that,
Well, we'll talk about how we're going to do that. But we do certainly need to increase your paving budget. This year, we would have been better had we not had the salt issue.
that's a
That-
whole nother subject that you
No,
all.
no, but it isn't really, because it's connected, because when we,
No, the truth is, our initial paving budget was only 500,000 with 100,000 for drainage. We're adding some money to the paving budget because of the salt savings.
but let's back up a little bit. How we structured the budget last year, being as we got clobbered the year before with the horrendous winter, we moved more of the money from paving towards winter
Right.
with the hope that, and we always said we would just move that back to paving depending on the winter.
Right, but it's probably a moderately bad winter that we've budgeted for, not a.
Not a super
all-time
bad winter.
Yeah, all-time
Yeah.
bad, so.
But again, if it hadn't been for the salt, we would have had a couple $100 extra $1,000 we could have put in this year.
Yes.
So we would like to get to a point where we can really be paving. And what was your number for next year?
915.
917.
917, so really,
Another
Call it a May.
$200,000.
Call it
yeah,
a May.
yeah.
300 at least to what
We-
was the initial budget this
Yeah,
year.
yeah, and it's difficult, obviously. We need to get to at least $1 million a year, more than that, but, just for next year to do what's on the list is $1 million. So, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do, and I hate to tell the people on East Hook Crossroad and then the top of Miller Hill, there's just no money to do it this year. But we have to plan how we're going to include all these roads in for the next year's budget.
But I'd just like to, keep in mind, fuel prices right now are the lowest they've been. I know they bumped up recently, but compared to what they were, 4 or 5 years ago, at
Yeah.
almost $4 a gallon or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and asphalt
Has-
is a direct derivative of oil,
Has it gone down?
both in,
Has asphalt gone down?
just bear in mind, whether it's gone down
Question?
substantially or
Yeah.
not, the point is,
If fuel goes-
if fuel goes up.
It'll go up.
It will go up.
But it's unfortunate that if fuel goes down, it
Yeah.
doesn't go down.
Yeah.
That's my point.
But it can always go up. And it's not just the price of the asphalt, it's the transportation of the asphalt and the fuel in the truck, so.
Yep, yep.
Something to keep that in mind.
Salt isn't, a direct factor with petroleum, but that went up 42%.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what the market can bear. Putnam County is $85 a ton for asphalt. We're $76 a ton for asphalt. That's why Kent and East Fishkill got together and paved Long Hill under a Dutchess County price, which was cheaper. So they reimbursed, the first time ever, Kent has reimbursed East Fishkill, or is in the process of reimbursing East Fishkill for the paving on Long Hill.
Okay. Why do we get it so much cheaper? It's just their bid down in Putnam County is that much higher? For blacktop, I can't imagine that.
Whatever market can bear.
Supply and demand.
Wow, I guess. Again, we're gonna
Across the
be,
river and gas is 15 cents cheaper.
yeah. That's due to an air attainment thing with the DOT people, I think. We're buying the asphalt off of, we're going off the county bid now?
That's correct, county bid.
Okay, so we're locked in with the county bid. So we need to find more money, obviously. I understand the point about this year's the year to pave. Obviously, I think the engineer's thinking.
Maybe even next year, but,
Yeah.
the longer we postpone it.
Yeah.
I don't know that, we don't have a crystal ball how long fuel's gonna stay low. but,
No,
I mean,
no,
it
no.
is directly related.
Yep, okay. Good point.
We still have a major hurdle that, we had to get through also is the 5,800 ton of salt that I still have to purchase and find a home for it in our sheds. The guys have been great. They moved all the inventory around so that we made room, but we still have to receive it and we still have to pay for that 5,800 ton.
Receiving, I'm not worried about paying for it. It's always been a bit of an issue. So we're going to be borrowing, and we decided, Mark, we were going to borrow for 2-year note, I believe. How much we had to borrow? We are contractually obligated by, what, 7,000 tons?
7,000, the order was for 10,000. We have to contractually take 7,000 of it. I've received 1,200 tons over the winter, so I'm down to 5,800 tons I take.
Okay, okay.
I should point out, that's the state contract for
That's
the
a-
state bid
Yeah.
that the municipalities have to buy.
Yeah.
That salt, we had the money to pay for that salt, correct, Mark?
Unfortunately, and excuse me, I apologize, unfortunately, when the previous highway superintendent committed to 10,000 tons,
Right.
nobody in the state of New York knew the price of salt that we're gonna have to pay. And once we committed to the 10,000 tons, and then OSG went out to bid, the only sole bidder was 42% higher in the salt prices than was the previous year. And American was the only bidder of salt. So I don't believe anybody can anticipate a 42% increase in salt. You're upwards of $90 a ton. You're excessive asphalt. So,
Well, I think that the previous highway superintendent gave us that price, that there was an increase in the price of
it
salt.
was, after it was awarded,
Right.
that's correct.
After it was committed to.
After we sign the contract.
And the
after
way
we
the
sign
state
contract.
works is you
Line
have to
commitment.
commit to a tonnage, then they bid it, and if you've committed to the tonnage, you have to take that tonnage.
Right.
So
But we
it's
used to
kind of
pay,
what
we
it's-
used to pay, what,
It was like
70?
60-something, and then
Yeah.
he
And
came
you
and
told us
said,
that it was
yeah, that
gonna
it was going up
be-
to 90, so we bought additional salt last year
Yeah.
at the 66, off the top of my head.
But then it said that it was gonna go over 90, the new
Which
salt
is
that we're
what
buying.
we're- yeah.
Right. So that was anticipated at the time.
But that was at the end of the, I mean, we knew that, I think, by November
We did,
or
but
so.
our budgets are already established.
Yeah.
Our budget's established June, July, August, and, we find our prices out, the previous highway superintendent found his prices out end of October, beginning of November.
Yeah.
So,
But we,
But I think the point, it just is that
Please.
if you do borrow, it's because you don't have to buy salt next year.
Exactly.
So you're just advancing what you would normally budget for salt next year to this year.
yeah, and not buy salt.
Right, and that replenishes money that you can use for paving.
Yeah, that's the only reason we're borrowing.
I'm gonna have 10,000 tons of salt in inventory. So, and if we have a year like we had this winter, it's
We're going to be good
fantastic.
for a couple of years.
So do
What
we
is-
have room for the
We made
5,800?
room,
He's
and
squeezing it in.
Yes.
we're not gonna have any outside storage like they had in the previous.
That lot up by the police department?
At
no
one
more?
time, we used
Town yard
that.
will not be used,
No,
no.
okay.
Yeah,
I brought in a gentleman that rents large stackers so that we can cone stack in our salt shed, stationary elevator, so to speak, so that we can get just every bit that we can get into it.
Excellent.
And then our sand salt shed, we've moved the inventory over to one side, so I can fill half of that with pure salt.
So we can-
I
we-
believe we have the room for it.
and what is the cost that we have to pay for this, Mark, or Bill?
It's just under $90 a ton,
Total, what do we have on, what's our contractual obligation?
5802.
It's 500 something thousand.
500,000? Okay. So we have to pay $500,000 for salt, and the deadline is by December 1st, December 31st?
I believe if you go past the fall, you had to pay $3.50 a ton storage fee.
Okay. Past the fall being,
I'd have to look to verify, but I thought it was the beginning of October, end of
Okay,
September, beginning of
okay.
October. Not only do you have to pay the storage fee, but you also have to pay for the inventory of the salt.
Mm-hmm.
You have to purchase it. And that's the other thing, the controller's attorney down in Association of Towns,
State control.
state controller, excuse me, attorney said that we're not supposed to prepay for anything, but yet this is the contract that our state Office of General Services has put all the towns, school districts, libraries, everybody in.
everybody's got the same problem.
That's correct.
All right, so what we'd propose to do is to take out a 2-year note to pay for the salt this year, and then we won't be having any expenses for salt next year, so it's just, it is like
Or a
a
minimal amount.
minimal amount. Hopefully, we'll have another winter like this, and it'll be very, very, very low. So then we could actually do more paving next year, because we're not be paying for salt next year, but we will be paying half the note.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
we have to pay
Yeah,
back.
we have to pay
That's
half
it.
the note.
I mean,
If we do a 2-year note, but I said to do, I was hoping to do a 2-year note to ease the pain over the next couple of years. Basically, coming up with the money for the paving to get over $1 million, or where we really need to be, $1.2 million, $1.4 million is really ideally where we need to be, is kind of a challenge. The only thing I think, yes?
I'm a little confused. I mean, the previous highway superintendent came to tell us, report that we need salt. At what point in the budget,
okay, we have the budget to pay for the salt,
okay,
Right.
so why do we need to borrow?
because we're going to buy the salt and not use it, and we're going to use the salt next year. So the idea was to borrow some money this year to pave and use the savings we're going to have on salt next year to pay for that bond. So it's pushing the savings from next year into this year to pave now instead of paving next year. It's,
So you're just using the money for the
We-
salt now for
the
the paving?
savings, we're not going to need to buy salt next year.
Yeah.
So we could just increase next year's paving budget. But we know this is essentially a fact, so we're trying to move that whole process forward a year because there were roads that really needed,
And we
The
have a
work.
good price for the blacktop.
Yeah,
that's the
To
concept.
Scott's point.
Right.
Right. So we could pave more next year, or we could pave more this year, and the idea was to move at least some of that forward into this year. The savings that we have by not paying for salt is what's going to pay for the ban that we take this year to do the extra paving.
Yeah,
I mean, there's two ways to do it.
I get that point. The point is, at what point during the budget process, the highway superintendent puts what he needs for the year, for next year, and at what point do we budget for that? I mean, it seems that,
Right, we did budget for, there's enough money in the budget to pay for the
at
salt.
what time during the year we start doing this?
I would say August, July, we start it. It
Yeah.
gets presented to the board in September. You
September,
have,
September, the
end of
board's provided.
September.
Budget in November.
You have a month and a half to discuss it and modify it in October, and you vote on the final budget in November.
I've already committed, I've already committed to the state, OGS, the quantity of salt I need for 2017. They asked for that beginning of this month.
Yeah, it's a bizarre process. He commits before you've even budgeted the money for the commitment,
And before you even know the price.
and before you know the price, and I don't know any way around that,
I've
other than
already-
to not go through the state,
Right,
but.
well, the only thing I have done, because we're gonna have such a hopefully vast inventory, is I only committed to 1,000 ton.
Yep.
So conceivably, I only have to take 700 of that. You know, I only take 70%. Or I could take up to 130, 1,300 ton. So I've committed to 1,000 ton. OGS wanted that commitment at the beginning of this month. It's done. I indicated to the supervisor, what we're doing. And again, the reason I only committed to 1,000, because I believe we're going to have a substantial inventory.
Of
We'll
salt.
have a beautiful, easy year again.
Well, we hope so. We hope so.
Billy, if I
So-
could, real quick, how many miles of road should you be paving a year, and how many are you actually paving?
Last year, I believe the highway superintendent paved Lake Walton Road, which is 2.7 miles.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you look at New York
And that was a
State,
mill and fill, it wasn't.
But
a
how
pave.
many miles should we be doing here?
208 miles of road, the average time frame on a road is approximately 15 years for secondary and 12 for what I call mainline roads or thorough roads like a Lake Walton, a Brown, a Montfort. So you take 208 and you divide easy numbers by 15,
14 or 15 miles.
yeah, you should be doing,
And we're well short of that right now.
we're way short of that.
you're not even close.
No, this is why the paving budget needs to be increased. So looking forward, I mean, we'll be doing our budget, actually, we'll be starting our preliminary budget in June, July. We'll be going to all the departments, sitting down with the highway superintendent, sitting down with chief of police, to see how much we're going to be budgeting for next year. We have to increase the paving budget, there's no doubt. So the question is, where's the money going to come from? We'll have to see. I don't know what the tax cap is going to be next year. What was the tax cap this year? I think it was
1.7.
1.49% or something was.
Yeah. So I don't know what the tax cap
Total.
is going to be next year, so that's going to be part of the calculation for, what we're going to be budgeting. So I'll have to see. The problem with the tax cap, unfortunately, is the tax cap is based on 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever's lower.
Right.
Of course, they use the CPI, which doesn't really reflect our costs. Our costs are not really bread or things in the calculation for the CPI. Our costs are more like fuel oil, blacktop, insurance, those type of things, pension obligations. So that's not really calculated. So that's unfortunate. It's too bad the governor decided to use the CPI for their inflation calculation. So we're going to have to see what we can do. I think it would be best, I think it would be best if we could take advantage, if we could do some more roads this year, but we'd have to see if we take out the ban, see what the cost of a 2-year ban would be, come back, and see if it's prudent to do those roads this year or just put them off till next year. I don't know. We'll have to sit down. Mark, could you do a memo? You and Bill sit down, and we'll do a memo to the board just to say pros and cons of borrowing the money this year,
Sure.
and what would be the effect of the interest, how much we'd allocate this year, how much we'd allocate last year,
And it's
or
just
next year.
it's just a 1-year fix.
Yeah, that's the thing, but,
Next
That's
year.
what they always say.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, this is not a long-term
no,
solution.
It was suggested, by a board member that we possibly bond our roads.
no.
Bonding roads is like taking a second mortgage.
Yeah, no, we'd never
You're just gonna
bond.
hurt yourself in the long run. Unfortunately, no one wants to hear it politically, no one wants to hear it, but unfortunately, there are towns that have to break the cap, and we're one of those towns. We really are. You've been very
Question,
conservative.
to be like, if you look at our state roads, I don't want
Awful
I
condition.
don't want our town roads to be like our state roads. Route 82, Route 52 are in terrible shape.
I
So,
talked to our regional engineer, and, we have a hazard tree on 82. We don't have the money to do it. Well,
yeah. And these are this is our infrastructure. And one thing you want to see is decent roads in our town.
it's our assets.
Yeah.
It really is.
Some of the other towns, they're in the similar situation. You drive around some of our neighboring town, their roads are not any better than ours. We're all in the same boat. The bottom line is that before we go down that road, there's going to be substantial savings this year in highway as far as overtime and, money that hasn't been spent in the winter. There probably could be possibly $200,000-$300,000 over there. I would probably shift some of that money into paving if it's possible. I don't know how the highway.
You-
I don't want to be negative about this, but you indicated, yes, there's no doubt we had a great winter. We were less than 22.3% of our budget, if I'm not mistaken, on our winter expenses, contractors, overtime, things like that. But if you look at our park system and the manpower that was spent in our park system, I incurred overtime. So, our savings in the wintertime, we're very fortunate, yes, but we're also very fortunate to utilize all that manpower to get our parks up to where they are today. And, I utilized manpower and I utilized overtime dollars. So we cannot rely on that savings that we had over a light winter, because I utilized that money to bring our parks up to where they are today. And I must say that we get compliments daily about our parks.
Yeah,
So we can't utilize that overtime money or savings.
Well, I would say it hard to be, even if there is savings, hard to quantify at this point to say that. I mean, when you do a budget, you're going to say, okay, we're going to save this much money.
I mean, the parks have, we've done a great work on the parks, no doubt about it. I would like to see some savings from now on. I mean, I think we've done a lot of work. And it's a matter of prioritizing what's important and what's not so important at this point. To throw money into beautifying certain things that are gonna be used only for a couple of months out of the year, we've done that. But I think addressing the issues of the roads, which we've been talking for quite a while, it's also very important to everybody in the town, not only to certain people that benefiting for using the parks. I mean, having said that, I mean, I don't mind spending money, but borrowing to do something that has not been done for so many years, for whatever reason, and to do it now all at once, I would be very cautious to go down that road. I mean, that's my opinion.
You're talking about the salt borrowing?
I'm sorry?
You're talking about the borrowing
The
for the
roads,
salt?
the roads, yeah.
I beg to differ with you, throwing the money against something that's used 2 or 3 months out of the year. Everything that we did in our parks was related to a safety issue, whether it was minor safety or major safety issues that we did, whether it be fencing, whether it be tree removal, whether it be fixing our fences, fixing our parks. Everything we did had something related to a safety issue that was wrong with our parks. There was a deficit, and we took care of it. So,
The
it
parks,
wasn't
yeah.
something just to make things look beautiful. It was something to make things look safe, so this board and our insurance carrier is protected. And our
No,
residents.
And I think the parks came out very good. But back to the roads, the other thing is, and you can say, okay, all the towns are suffering with bad roads, and absolutely, we have 208 miles of our own town road. Problem with roads is, once they degrade to a certain point, it's a lot more expensive to bring them back than if you can just do maintenance before they reach that point. And Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a significant expense once they get down to where you have to actually grind them out, put down new base or what have you.
Or full binder and
Yeah,
top. I mean, in
yeah.
case of Lake Walton, we milled out last year,
400 and change, and then
Right.
we
Yeah.
did top again.
and we did the worst areas, and I think
Yeah.
overall, we saved money doing it in that
East
fashion.
Hook Crossroad, where the heavy truck traffic coming out of West Hook,
Yep.
we had to mill and fill that, and then we went ahead and topped it. So, once the road gets by you,
Yeah.
topping is not gonna just fix it.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And then one other thing, if I may, just to add, as far as one way to look at the borrowing, the short term, if I might add, is that if it's 1 or 1.5% interest, it's like taking out an insurance policy, because asphalt could jump up 10% in a year, 5% in a year. So I
Like
mean,
our salt did.
for 1 or 1.5%, it seems like a good insurance policy.
Yeah,
because
you can
chances are
buy it
asphalt
now.
could go up that
Well,
much
I don't think
easily.
any of us were saying that the short term about spending the paving for this year instead of next year for the band is an issue.
No, I don't
And
think
I
so.
agree with the councilman that, there was a couple $100,000 saved because of overtime for the winter or what have you, and we were lucky, fortunate enough to use that to the parks. If we had another winter like we did this year, next year, then we'd have another couple $100,000, say it was the same scenario. We wouldn't have to do that to the parks, then he's saying we would use that to the roads. But that's very little. I mean, it is something, but it's not enough.
not getting us where we need to be. And when you talk about how it should be doing 10, 12 miles a year, we're far short of that.
Now, 208 miles of, those are only our roads. That's the,
Yep.
is that the biggest in the county? Are we the biggest?
Second? No, I think we might be
Second.
the-
Second biggest?
Yeah, a lot of roads.
A lot of miles.
Absolutely.
I mean, winter's not over yet either. Isn't winter from January 1st to December 31st?
That's
In
correct.
your budget?
Well, November and December we have
Yeah,
coming,
we
right?
still have a couple
So we
months
need to
left.
So we still got
Right.
some winter, so you got a chance to use that
And hopefully,
100,000
and hopefully we
pounds
don't.
of salt.
Hopefully we'll have a nice, easy winter.
Yes, please.
Hopefully we get through and we get a nice winter.
All right,
But it's not over yet.
Mark, you, Bill, and I sit down, put together a couple of different scenarios and see what we need to do. But again, then I understand all the other towns are doing it, but I don't want to be the town that's, really putting a lot more money into our roads than we need to be just because we let them deteriorate so badly, so.
Well,
see what we
ultimately,
can
it's
do.
gonna, quote, bite you in the butt, because once they go by, your costs are, tenfold.
Yeah,
bring it
that's
back.
the problem.
And then obviously your constituents that vote for everybody on this board, sit there and have an awful lot of complaints when they're busting their tires and
Well,
rims.
I do say, I think one of the things we should be offering is a decent road system. I don't think New York State does that, but I do think we should do that.
John, if I may, paving roads is at the discretion of the highway superintendent. And my question is, what happened to the last 15 years? Why have we fell to the point that we are not today? This didn't happen overnight.
No,
Okay. So
I
I
can't
agree
speak-
that, I agree that we have to take care of the roads. But I don't want to see us bonding $5 million
well, we wouldn't bond. I don't
or
think there's any,
borrowing $5 million.
I don't think there's anybody on this board who wants to borrow $5 million for
Well,
roads.
I'm just saying, I mean,
Well, I
let's
don't think
be-
that's an option.
Let's be sensible, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but we're not going
Let's
to
be
do that.
reasonable.
That was never considered here.
Right, I'm just saying, because
Okay.
some numbers were thrown out in the past. I just, I want to take care of the problem, but this problem has been gotten to where it is over time. And again, I want to bring it back over time.
Well, it's not
Not
going to happen.
neglecting the fact
Oh, it's not going to
Has
happen
to be
overnight.
taken care of.
You have to get to a certain point, but nobody here is talking about bonding for roads. We've all discussed what a terrible idea that is.
Yeah,
But we have to see how we're going to improve our blacktop budget. So sit down and work on it, see what we can come up with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Yep, it's a challenge. When you have expenses go up the way they do, you only have a certain amount of money you can spend. We tried during the recession, we really tried to be, I think, cognizant of the impact of taxes, higher taxes on our citizens. Then unfortunately, the governor came out with a tax cap, which exacerbated the problem. So then I've always said, we don't really have an expense problem. I think we run pretty tight ship. We have a revenue problem. That's the problem. We'll see what we can come up with. But again, the easiest one to cut has always been, okay, cut back on blacktopping, but you can't just keep cutting back on blacktopping forever. And actually, I went up to the county legislator, Marge Horton, I went up to the legislature a couple years ago just to say that same thing. Fell on deaf ears. One thing would be nice with the tax cap is if the governor would have given us the mandate relief, or some kind of relief in the pensions, or some kind of help that way. But it was really just a one-way street. It was just, okay, you cap your taxes, and that's it. So it's an unfortunate situation. MS4, I mean, you talk at this, you look at expenses all over, and there's no thought about it. So, but we'll see what we can do. That's it for the discussion part. I would just like to go to liaison reports. Spoke with the chief today. I think we did have a couple of break-ins and that they're working on. Police investigating 2 overnight break-ins to businesses in Hopewell Junction within the last 2 weeks. Similar break-ins have occurred. I believe these are what we call smash and grabs. Elsewhere in Poughkeepsie, and our detectives are working with the other police agencies on it. And that's really not too much going on. I'd like to thank our police department for all the good work that they do. And again, it's budget time. Sometimes it seems like everything hits at once. We're in negotiations for the police, the PBA, and that's, there's just looking at possibly health costs going up. Hopefully pension costs will level out. How could you see pension costs going up in 10 years from $600,000 a year to $1.7 million? So you can see, it's very easy to see how these things just eat up your budget. But that being said, Councilman D'Alessandro, planning and zoning, any report?
Oh, planning and zoning's getting busier, and saying that, the building department's getting busier, and I know we don't want to hear it, but we're going to need help in the building department. So we've said, and I've expressed to the engineer that we should get a plan, and he's been looking for people to hire, and he's going to need help.
Obviously, it's a civil service position. Civil service test results should be coming out in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, so
We're
we'll
waiting
have to
for the
make a
list.
move, and
Yep.
another issue I wanted to discuss was, a few months ago, we discussed about the electric RFP for the LED lighting, and I know that other councilmen here were going to do some due diligence on, so we could probably get, maybe look to that not-for-profit to do the RFP for us. I just wanted to hope that, or ask them if they did their due diligence, if we could maybe talk about an RFP.
Yeah, I met with Wendell, one of the engineers there. We went to the town of Poughkeepsie. I know Councilman Marinaro has talked to them as well. I had a chance to do a little tour with them. Seems to be very nice. I believe it's Article 9 of the New York State Energy Law, where something about to pay for everything, it has to be, it's guaranteed savings or something. It's sort of a win-win situation for towns. So, and I've also been in contact with a company up in Syracuse about LEDs for all of our sports lightings, all of our outdoor areas that we have. Apparently, all of the structures that we have are very, very old, and they suck up a lot of energy. And I know, Scott, you've been on it as well, and you know of another company that
Well, I know we're
That
going to look
does-
as far as Lime Kiln. We have somebody
Yeah.
taking a look at what we can do at Lime
Right.
Kiln to upgrade and maybe move some of the poles around to free up some space out in the field, so.
But yeah, the company I talked to in Syracuse is supposed to be the leader, industry leader in sports LED lighting. So,
So maybe we can get together, maybe we can meet with that company, that non-for-profit, I forgot, we
Yep.
discussed with them. Maybe they could do the RFP for us, possibly. And, you know, that would,
We could authorize.
future savings,
Yeah,
right? We
no,
could
I'd
get
like
some
to
future
authorize
savings.
that, yep,
So, all right.
absolutely, very good. Councilman Cassidy, Highway.
Bill's been doing nothing. No. Not true, Bill. Just last night, at 9 o'clock, they went out and they were painting roads. Lake Walton, Montfort, Brown Roads, all the line painting was completed last night. Been doing a lot of tree trimming and tree removal along major roads in town. Blacktop patching and shimming along majority of the town roads. Stormwater catch basin rebuilding, approximately 470 basins in need of repair still in town. The best news of the year that we got, all the road sweeping was done last week. So we're not going into July with that this
That's
year.
good.
A lot of major drainage projects along Townsend Road. The community center replaced a dry well in front of the building, and they reset all the memorial bricks. Asphalt top on the following roads: Hosner, East Hook Crossroad, Terra Nova, Francis, Margaret, Lake Walton, and Binder on Long Hill. And the shops continued to do preventive maintenance on all the vehicles and the equipment in the property. So they've been busy.
Yep. Great, thank you,
And
Peter.
brush cleanup starts in,
Drop off.
brush
Brush
drop
drop-off.
off starts in 2 weeks, I believe, June?
June. Yep, first Wednesday in June.
First Wednesday in June.
And it will be run in June and October.
Yep.
And if I could, just to add, the bids are going to be out the 20th on our 2016 townwide drainage
Okay,
projects, which includes Old Sylvan Lake Road, a culvert replacement there, and I think 106 catch basin repairs. So I think we're going to be looking for the award at the next voting meeting,
okay. When are the
that
bids
project.
to come back?
the 20th.
Okay.
So I'll get a memo out to the board prior to the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think we also have a lighting project that's due the
The
16th, next week.
McGrath parking lot lighting project? Okay,
That's next week.
okay, very good. Thank you, Peter. Councilman Franco, Recreation.
recreation leagues are in full swing for the spring and summer season. Last night, Mike Miner and his crew, I want to thank him for the great job that they did. They were with me. We broadcasted a Little League game on Field 5, and also want to thank Billy and his crew. The field looked absolutely immaculate. It was wonderful. Kids had a great time, and Mike was hoping to get the baseball game up by the weekend, and he got it up by last night. So
Wow.
everything is up. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Very good.
Great game. The kids had a good time.
Good, good. I know when I walk in the park a lot, I used to look at Field 1, but I didn't really realize that when you looked at the, where they run the bases and the infield, there was quite a drop-off there, and actually it was pretty dangerous as baseball brought to our attention. but I look at it now, it's all flat, it came out very nice. Field one looks
There's been
very
a
good
ton of
field.
feedback from baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball is thrilled with the way
Good.
things have been looking.
Good, good. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, Councilman Marinero, Hillside Lake Park District?
Hillside Lake, I mean, we're still waiting for the permits to start the project of rehabilitating the lake. Some board members have notified me that there have been different engineers taking measurements and.
Surveyors were out, correct?
surveyors.
Yes, we heard they were out.
Yeah.
Good.
So they said that they were out there by the beach area, looking few days.
Good.
A couple of weeks ago.
I'd like to propose, I think we'll sit down with Stephen Gruber, set up a meeting possibly again for the community center. And once he gets, because he's waiting on those measurements, the
Right.
surveyors, to actually map out the project and how it's going to look and bring it to the public. So maybe we could
Yeah.
look to do something, I would say, mid-June, maybe? That would be good.
Yeah.
Very
Meet
good.
Again with the community, let them know
Yeah.
what we finalized, if they finalized. They're asking question about that.
Good,
So
good.
that will be very good to do that. The other thing that they've been questioning me, and I spoke to Tom, the town lawyer, some information about dissolving the park.
Okay.
So the Tom has been looking
Right,
into that.
as I told the councilman, I prepared a memo, my own memo. I've sent it down to our bond counsel, Thomas Myers, because bond counsels are experts in special district stuff. So he's going to take a review at it, and then we either make comments to me or send his letter indicating that it concurs with the options, and then I'll present it to the board.
Thanks for your help.
Okay, good. Anything else?
And it should be very short, it should be
Basically,
about 2 more weeks.
Just if I could, just to update you, as far as Hillside Lake, I know a while back, a year or so ago, there was a drainage deficiency just outside of Hillside Lake that came into the watershed. And just within the last probably month or so, that was all, corrected, finalized by the homeowners. I'd like to thank them for cooperating with the town, but that's all
Very
been
good.
addressed, yes.
Yep, absolutely. That was quite a,
Little project, but
Project.
I'd like to thank them for taking care
Very
of
good.
that.
yes, they did a good job. Very good. Nothing else?
Yeah,
Yes.
one more thing.
Yeah.
Residents are asking already about the next flea market. So what's the scenario?
Okay, well, I'm glad
for the
you
flea
brought that up.
market?
I wasn't sure I was going to bring that up. We had a meeting today, the chief of police, myself, the town clerk, the lieutenant, had a meeting with flea market people. Obviously, a lot of people on one side of town recognize that there was an event 2 weeks ago that basically stopped traffic on Route 52, Beekman Road, all around Greenman Haven, all around the flea market. So we had unfortunately, it was not I'm not sure they really appreciated the importance of the situation. We had a meeting today with them in this room. They were just like, well, we had a great event. I said, you had a great event that shut down a good portion of our town. And what would have happened if we had had an emergency, we need to get a fire truck, or if somebody had a heart attack, to get an ambulance through that? And they were really like, well, we had a great event. Unfortunately, I did not sense in their attitude recognition of their responsibility. At one point, one of the owners of the flea market, one of the operators said, well, we have responsibilities to our vendors and to our workers. I said, well, I didn't hear you say you have responsibility to the town of East Fishkill. You have a serious responsibility to the town of East Fishkill. And I said, we will not allow this to happen again. And there's a lot of back and forth, and I will say I left it this way, that basically, and they said they made changes to one of the roads to get more traffic in quicker, because that seemed to be the issue. Again, they seem to be, I would say, either oblivious or not really caring of what they had done to our town. I've spoken to the attorney, and I think if we have one more event like that, that will be the last flea market we will have in this town for quite some time, because we will go to the New York State Supreme Court and get an injunction to stop them from operating. I told them that today, but it was very, very disappointing that their attitude was, well, we had a great event. We can't plan for great events. We just had a great event. Well, unfortunately, their great events do not go along with the best interests of our town. I think I believe they got the message, and if this happens again, Tom, we will go to the Supreme Court and get an injunction to where they will not operate that flea market. And, I imagine there's a lot of people in town of East Fishkill that like that flea market, but we cannot put the public health and safety in jeopardy for an event like that. And so that's where we left it. I think they got the message, but I tell you the truth, I was very, very disappointed in their attitude. So we will take steps if this ever happens again. Okay, and my apologies to anybody. And thank goodness we didn't have to get an emergency vehicle through that part of town, that large part of town, for any reason whatsoever. They were some lucky. So, yes, I would say one more time happens, and that will be the end of the Stormville Flea Market. Okay? And we'll see how that goes. Anything else? I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, I was going to bring that up, but we will see what happens. I think the next one is Memorial Day. And that better run smooth as a clock. Otherwise, we'll take action, so.
Speaking of that, Sons of Italy Carnival, the end of the month,
Already?
Memorial Day.
Boy, where does time go? When is the Sons of Italy Carnival? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a rain date Monday?
I got no idea. I'm Irish.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you would know. And speaking of that.
it, Nick?
Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, I think it's Thursday.
Thursday, oh, is it Thursday this year?
It's Thursday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and of course, our Memorial Day celebration.
Rain day, right?
Right.
I'll eat there for 4 days, but
We'll be having our Memorial Day celebration also on that Monday for Memorial Day. I forget the date off the top of my head. They will start marching at the community center at 11:15, and the Memorial Day ceremony will be held at the the East Fishkill Memorial down there at Beekman Road and Route 82.
There's also a soccer tournament, right?
You can't have
Memorial
soccer.
Day tournament.
You have soccer tournaments on Memorial Day?
They always have, yeah.
Really?
Memorial Day tournament.
Wow.
Yep.
These guys are something else, these soccer people.
Always.
With that, thank you very much for coming. The next town board meeting is May 26th. Thank you very much.